First off, I want to thank you all for joining me today. My name is Brad Jackson. I have been with Cyberscience Corporation going on 20 years this coming May. I'm excited to be working in the SX.e market. And I want to show you today a little bit on how reporting and dashboards are used by SX.e clients and a few other M4 clients as well. First off, we're going to go ahead and do a PowerPoint piece. So we'll go through the agenda here, what we're going to cover. We're going to go ahead and cover typical SX.e customer requirements. We've been working with the SX.e base for a few years now and a lot of other M4 applications, such as the old Maughan product, or M4LN, and M3, and then also Sightline. So we've run into a lot of M4 clients, and SX.e happens to be one that we see that we've had some prospects tell us that it could benefit from improved business intelligence and reporting. We're going to go through some case studies. Not all of them are SX.e, but a few of them are. So I'm just going to give you a little idea of how they've actually used Cyberquery. We'll go through some content. So I have some screenshots of different reports and dashboards, scorecards to show you today as well. And then we'll go ahead and get into the product demonstration of Cyberquery 2. And last but not least, we'll go ahead and do the Q&A and next steps. So at any time, please feel free to input your questions. If I can answer them during the middle, I will jump in and do that. If not, I will try to answer all of them if possible at the end of the presentation. So client requirements that we saw from the SX.e base when we talked to a bunch of them. And we've been going to the TUG group over the last few years as well. So we've had some exposure to them in that area as well. So first was easy and fast access to SX.e. One of the things that we heard was a struggle with the SX.e client base was trying to connect to Progress in several different ways, one of them being through ODBC drivers. We've been working with Progress for over 20 years now, and we were very well aware that whenever you try to connect multiple tables via Progress and the ODBC connection, that it usually causes poor performance and degradation. And often doesn't even return the query and sometimes crashes. So the fact that Cyberquery has a native connection right into the Progress database is extremely powerful. Reports, charts, analytics, and BI. So we were told that scheduling and emails of reports and dashboards was a must. So that's something Cyberquery covers too. Output, different output formats, Excel, PDF, HTML. I don't have on there JSON. We can do pretty much any type of output that you need to, one way or another, we can output it to a certain file type, XML too. Drill downs. So the ability to drill down from that information, so that summary level information, drill down, drill across, Cyberquery can do that as well. Power and functionality. So one of the nice things about Cyberquery, you'll see through a bunch of examples in the content that I'm going to show, is it really can create pretty much any report you can think of, including financial statements, logistic reporting, so bill materials, bill lading, sales analysis, production, and/or data mart access. So we haven't run into a report, or at least I haven't in the 20 years I've been here, that one way or another we couldn't develop in Cyberquery. So we'd like to hang our hat on that. Dashboards. They wanted to know, well, how is Cyberquery different than other dashboards? And we'll get into that when we move forward. And then also reasonable price. I like to say high value here. So what are you getting for what you're paying for? We have many different models. We have a perpetual license. Also, we have an annual and a monthly subscription license too. So you'll see that when we get into the pricing, and we can discuss that a little later, that you truly do get a lot for what you pay for. Here are some of our customers that you've probably seen and you're aware of in the market. Going to start out with some case studies here. First one being M&S Data Systems. John Madancina was telling us why he chose Cyberquery. He felt ease of use. So we're always told three things when it comes to Cyberquery, and I'll repeat this a few times during this presentation, but ease of use, it's fast. When I say fast, it means fast developing queries and also fast processing the information and pulling the data back. And that has a lot to do with that native Progress connection. Dashboards, we wanted Excel integration as well. So the ability to pull data from Excel and also push data out into Excel. Another example we have here is UEA. It's Howard Samron with the IT department, and why he chose Cyberquery. This is another M4 client. He came up with some funny disclaimers for us, and we like to repeat these. And so his first one was, depression has been known to occur when going back to standard reports after using Cyberquery. Cyberquery exists because as much as an application tries to create every report they can think of, it's typically not enough for the end user, and Cyberquery can always fill in those gaps. Once on Cyberquery, increased report requests can occur from various business units. This is a good and bad thing. It's bad sometimes because there's a lot of extra work that is required or requested, but all in all, it's a good thing in the end because you start getting true value out of that information that you are collecting. That's kind of the goal, and whole reason why we're using these computer systems. He said business analysts have reported ear-to-ear smiles by users on Cyberquery. And he says, if it happens, don't stop using it. Otherwise, they'll have sudden thoughts of tarred and feathering. So they may come after you, is what he's trying to say. The point is when you get used to using Cyberquery, people want more and more from it, and they don't want it taken away. So how do they use Cyberquery? Well, they have about 100 reports that are pushed throughout the entire enterprise via email. They do a lot of that through Excel spreadsheets. As I mentioned, we have a lot of output types, and they also do some PDFs. Power users, anyone from sales to engineering can use Cyberquery. We have multiple graphical interfaces, and we also have a language interface. So even those who are programmer types can get more value out of the product. But what he liked especially was because of the ability for sales and typical business users to utilize Cyberquery, he felt there was less reports that IT were required to write. So it was yet another more flexibility that was added or into the product to help others use the product. Reports are pushed to vendors outside and to outside sales reps. So he liked the ability to push that information out. Some features that they love. He says he loves that Cyberquery has the ability to simplify the ugly data from the ERP. And that can be done in many different ways through our data dictionary, and I'll get into that a little bit more later. But we can simplify the usernames, we can simplify the entire structure if we choose. Very stable. So he says the report server just never goes down. That's huge. Scheduling. It's great to have the ability to run all these queries, but if you have to be the one pushing them out all the time, that gets a little time consuming. We have a module called QDirector that allows you to add those queries into QDirector to run the job at any time to push that information out to those consumers. Extremely fast queries, so he likes how fast the queries respond. Another benefit to that native Progress interface. And then also fast support. So our support team, they do training, consulting, and support, and they average over 10 years experience here. And they're located in Denver, Colorado. So whenever you call someone up on the phone, you will get someone to answer your call and if not, return the call quickly. They like that he can write reports using the graphical user interface or the code editor. So he's an IT type. He can do it both ways. So the benefits to UEA, says Cyberquery has given them visibility into the data in the ways that they haven't seen with other M4 tools in the past. So he's extremely happy about that. And that power users are now understanding the ERP data structures. He said it's so important to have that accurate data. And he says they've even taken it a step further, and I see a lot of clients doing that these days. They're doing exception reports, so they're looking for data that should be entered in, and if it's not, they can either tell them or they can have QDirector jobs set up to email reports back to those users to try to start getting them to enter data in correctly the first time. Okay. Surprisingly, the data that gets entered in will get reported out with Cyberquery, but you can take it a step further to start improving that process. Final thoughts. He says Cyberquery is drama-free software, so we do like to hear that, and our support team likes it too. They said they can't imagine conducting business without Cyberquery now, so that's another huge compliment. Suzohab, so they're a worldwide leader in the gaming and amusement systems area. They are also a Cyberquery client. Charles Sines, he's a global VP of IT there. He says that they use the M4, M3 distribution product, and they identify there's a gap during the implementation process around BI reporting and the ability of users to get the information out themselves. He met our folks in the UK. We are based out of the UK. And he met them at the conference, it's a Progress conference in Nottingham, England, and they said they haven't looked back since. He complimented us, saying that our team's a pleasure to work with and that the product is very user-friendly. And he said just after a couple sessions that his users can make their own reports, give them the independence that they were looking for. So he said this is what they were looking for to be able to expand to other systems globally. So good news. Why they chose ECQ? It's scalable. As I said, he wants to move this to a global implementation, and they were moving away from another BI tool. Ease of use. Keep hearing that ease of use for end users and on-demand reporting. So that was huge for them. And also the ability to drill down into that information and export it to other formats. Performance, how fast it is to get the data. And then data dictionary. And I mentioned this a little bit. We'll get into this more, but it's that metadata. It's the definition of the data, right? This allows you to do all types of things like create joins among tables within the dictionary, create more user-friendly field names, something called viewpoints I'll talk about later. But that data dictionary is huge to allow you to pull data out of Progress, which could be SX.e, it could be other M4 Progress, Microsoft SQL, Oracle, DB2. We connect to all different types of databases, so it's huge. And we can do it all at one time too, so real time across those data sources. And then low risk. He felt that he was looking for an ideal cost model that allowed subscription-based pricing. So the ability to start up, and if they weren't getting value quickly, to go ahead and end that subscription. So he saw that as a great fit. He gave us a little some points on their daily production reporting. And he said key points are Cyberquery is an interactive tool. It's easy to use for all. Also the reporting provides key metrics to production line managers so they can manage their resources more effectively. I had the pleasure to talk with Vera, I think it was about 6 weeks ago. She is a senior data analyst for Johnstone Supply. She's been using the product for a couple of years. And I asked her to share, you've been using the product for a couple of years. What are some of the things, kind of go back and tell us why you chose Cyberquery and some of the cool things that you do within Cyberquery. So this was pretty much what she said as an overview. She said, hey, we were looking for a robust BI platform. They were on a previous BI tool, and it wasn't fitting their needs as they were having an increased demand for data. When I asked why they chose CQ in the beginning, she said it has a native Progress connection. You keep hearing that, but it's extremely important when you're connecting to multiple databases. I say multiple tables, sorry. So direct access to the Progress database. So she also was happy that there was no reliance on other parties to have to cube and or stage data. Once the data gets added into SX.e, it gets stored onto Progress. You can run a query seconds later in Cyberquery, and your data's there. Immediate access to the data in the custom table. So when we do our initial import for the Cyberquery dictionary, we will load those custom tables that you have as well. So it's no need to go back to anyone else to ask to get that data loaded and or tied back in through a cube in some way. She was looking for powerful and flexible. So one product to handle dashboards, reporting, and analytics. She didn't want to have to go find multiple solutions. So when she was starting to expand a little bit on the cool things that she's done with Cyberquery, she came up with a member rewards report. And I got to see this a little bit. It's a pretty cool report. And the key points on this is, she says this report is delivered weekly to 470 different customers. And each report is specific to that customer, and they're able to track their own progress on what they are earning. She said the rewards report is provided very accurate measuring, and it also provides support during periods as their customer revenues were improving. And that once they started receiving this information, they were extremely impressed and appreciative to have it. So it's a huge win there for Vera. In addition, she created a static SX.e pricing report. The key points for this. So what it does is within Cyberquery, it creates a snapshot of pricing for future reference and reporting. It utilizes already pre-existing SX.e reports that get output to CSV, and then Cyberquery runs up against those CSV files, converts them into an indexed Cyberquery data mart for future use. Once that has been completed, you're able to go ahead and connect that later to other parts of SX.e. Specific prices were captured and stored by customer type, and as I said, fully integrated to report against any of the SX.e data. So no risk of having that data be copied over in the future, because you're always capturing it on a monthly basis, and you can always go back and look at that data as it was at that time. So huge benefit to them. And they did that as well, as I said, through Excel, through CSV files. Here's another example of a client, HyperPet. They're a distribution of pet toys, so it's a smaller organization. So that Cyberquery isn't just for the larger clients, it's also for small and medium. And they said that, hey, things are going great with Cyberquery, and they felt it seems very natural to use, and they're producing some pretty cool reports. So Amtico, this is a manufacturer and distributor of vinyl flooring based out of UK. And so we asked them why they use Cyberquery, and they said, hey, well, first off, they're a market leader in the luxury vinyl tiles, as I mentioned. They've been using us for nearly 20 years now. And they get a lot. I mean, they've been using this for some time. So they've pretty much maximized the use on Cyberquery, at least for where they're from their use point. But it's water. But they have 90,000 unique reports that they publish each month. Over 300,000 executions each month. So those are different queries that are generated by Cyberquery. 200 consumers receive emailed reports through Cyberquery, and they have 15 real-time dashboards or wall boards. Wall boards is they can put it up on a big, large touchscreen. People can come up and use that just as if it was their query. Why did they choose Cyberquery? It was a quick report development cycle. So it didn't take a lot of pre-staging of the data, like I mentioned earlier. Very intuitive to use. So they saw, through the graphical editors, which I'll show you in a bit, that Cyberquery was easy to use. They liked they could be published in the required formats that they needed. And also that they could pull data from multiple different systems. So here you can see they pulled it from several different ERP systems, a data warehouse, help desk system, etc. So big wins: speed and frequency of reporting, quality of data. So they liked it. One of the nice things about Cyberquery when you're reporting natively up against the database is you don't have a lot of data silos. You don't have data hiding in Excel in different places that you have to remember to go look for it. It's right up against that database. And then ownership of data. They like the data, fixing data issues within the application too. So they're using it as kind of like a diagnostic tool for data. ownership of data, so they like that they control their full access of data versus, once again, relying on someone. Business benefits, they're getting the data right now, and they're not having to go and manually tweak data or, like I said, look for those silos of data. Reporting now allows people to be proactive. So, they're not looking at data from a long time ago or waiting for someone to stage the data and getting it a week or a month later. They're getting it instantaneously. As soon as they put the data in, they get the data out. So a huge plus for them. So as a review, Cyberquery, ease of use. You'll hear three things, and I have a couple other listed here, but three things, and that's ease of use, power or flexibility, and then speed. Those are the three things that we always hear about when it comes to Cyberquery, why our clients use us and keep us. So easy use, once again, it's the ability to develop those queries very easily. And that allows more people to use it within the organization. So we see executives, the end users, the power users, all the way down to the programmers using Cyberquery. Powerful and flexible, as I mentioned. So any report we've found out how to build it one way or another, drill downs, dashboards. I say any data. As I said, we can read things like XML, we can read JSON. Pretty much our developers, if we don't already have a connection to it, what drives them is when we come to them with a new data source and say, hey, can you read this? And they go find a way to do it. And then ETL, Cyberquery is often used as an extract, transform, load tool, meaning you can pull the data out, always transform it into different structure, and then you could load it to be staged into another database, or it could be put into one of our proprietary data marts we call hold files or query databases. So extremely flexible. Performance, once again, it goes out and gets that data real time, and with that data progress interface, it's much faster. Server-based security as well, so we can put security at site levels, database, table row, all the way down to the field level if we have to. So there's many different ways we can apply security within Cyberquery. And then cost, the fact that you can do monthly subscriptions, that's huge. So it's a low cost option to get into to get high value in return. And the fact that it works. As I said, I've been here 20 years, and I've had partners of ours who tell us sometimes people don't talk a lot about Cyberquery because there's not problems with Cyberquery. So it's kind of one of those mixed bags, but the fact that it just goes out there and works for our clients, we're extremely happy about that. Here's an example. I have some screenshots I told you about. So this shows Launchpad. This is how reports are shared or dashboards are shared within the organization. You can see it's running within a browser. This happens to be an example for the Maughan application. I'm going to try to go through these fairly quickly so we don't spend a ton of time on screenshots. But here you can see for this example, this shows reporting up against multiple databases, but it also has up against multiple currencies here. So you can see the different types of currencies. And then also, like, here's a multi-byte character as well. So I believe that's kanji, but don't quote me on it. Here is another example. This is a graph that has data coming from an ERP app, and then also coming from Salesforce, and it's coming from an Excel file. So they created a budget within Excel, data coming from both something out in the cloud and then also something locally, which happens to be their ERP system. And there's also drill downs here. So if I click on a graph on here, for example, you can pull up a drill. This happens to be data that's fuzzied out, but you can see that it allows you to drill into that information. And keep in mind, when you drill into this information in this configuration, it's drilling into real time, okay? This is a good example of how Cyberquery can be used, kind of thinking out of the box. So 3M built this report with the idea being that they're able to grab, they record the tracking number in their system. But what they do is they actually take that tracking number and they apply a hyperlink in it in Cyberquery. They wrap a link around it to actually go out, and if it's a UPS or if it's a FedEx, it prepends and wraps around the URL with the tracking number. So when they send this out to people in the field, they can just click on that and it will actually pull up the tracking site and show exactly what the status of the shipment is. So extremely powerful. This shows one reporting across modules here. So you have your different modules as well with all these hyperlinks. This one right here shows an income statement. As I mentioned earlier, we can do financial statements. Here's an example of an income statement. So let's say I click on cost of materials. It pulls up. This is for Sightline. It goes and actually looks at my cost of goods sold. And then I can continue to drill down all the way into the ledger details. So the fact that it allows you to click and drill down into the real-time transactional level is huge. Once again, not relying on others for stage data. Here's an example of invoice combining an ERP with CPQ. So it's going through and just creating an invoice. This was all done with Cyberquery, this entire thing. Logo, grabbing a picture, and this is actually a report, pulling the information out of the systems. Here's a form that was developed in Cyberquery. Now you can do forms a couple different ways. You can get a form such that it's already pre-printed for you, and then Cyberquery just applies the data on top of that, including things like barcodes that Cyberquery supports. Or we could actually create the entire form in Cyberquery where the lines are developed and everything. So including the images and the logo, etc. So extremely powerful. Here's an example of a purchase order and sales contract, just other examples. This one's kind of unique. So what happens here is it's using something called HTML frames. And it means you're seeing two different frames of HTML pages at once. But with this report, as you click on one of the sections on the left, which happens to be one report, and you can expand as well, you click on the different months, it will actually change the report in the right-hand window for you. So it's filtering and kind of like a parameter-driven report that gives people more flexibility. So just another creative way we discovered how Cyberquery can be utilized by running all within, as you see in the browser here. Here's an export into Excel. So Cyberquery allows you, it has several different ways to integrate with Excel. One is to just a simple export into Excel. Okay, here's an example of that. Another way is to use Excel as a front-end runtime module. So what that means is you have a report developed in Cyberquery, and then you go into Excel and say, I want to input this report into Cyberquery, and I want to run it from Excel. So in this example, there happens to be three reports. The blue, the green, and gray are all Cyberquery reports, and they happen to come off of 4 parameters that drive those 3 reports. So you essentially load the Cyberquery report into Excel, put in your parameters, hit refresh all. It runs 3 different queries that go ahead and pop it, or update the blue, the green, and the gray. The graphs you're seeing are just simple Excel graphs that are looking back at the data. In addition, you have a couple or 3 columns over here that are different calculations and variables within Excel that go look off of the data pulled in from Cyberquery. So it's just yet another way to have those who really understand, really love Excel, get the benefit of what Cyberquery can do on quick access to data and complex joins, etc. Pull that into Excel and allow them to use it. You can do things also like these top 6 fields right here. Those could actually be parameters that drive a separate worksheet. So there's, like I said, there's all kinds of creative things you can do with this. Here's an example of a Kanban card in CQ where the image is coming from an AutoCAD. Just another example here. This one you can see this specific report shows product details, routing information, but it also starts to get into conditional highlighting of different fields. So, you know, your red, yellow, greens, whatever you want based off the data. And then here, let's get into a little bit of visualization. We're always improving on our visualization. These are just some examples here, some bullet charts and spark lines. And then some other examples, a little bit more modern examples here as well. All these can have drills on them too, just so you know. So you can click anywhere on here and have a hyperlink that drills into information. And I think that's one of the things compared to other tools that you're not seeing these days is most dashboards you are required to do some type of staging. We give it we allow you to choose whether or not to go and hit your live information or to go ahead and hit stage data. So Cyberquery gives you that ability to drill down into transactional data. Another example for a rental charges performance dashboard. Here's one of the sales GM of percent by plant rolling in 13 months. You can see some hyperlinks put in here in the middle section, but by all means, any of the graphs could have links on them as well. So a little bit of overkill showing you just different options you have when it comes to the graphs within Cyberquery. Here's a modern looking one as well with the bubble charts and mapping and so forth. So we are, like I said, always increasing when it comes to visualization within Cyberquery, including doing things like maps and so forth, which I'll show you in a sec. Right here shows you our dashboard module. We have a separate add-on dashboard module. This one allows you to do filtering right on the left here, which as you click on any of these, it's going to filter automatically to any drill down that you do. So that's very valuable as well. Here's some of the maps I was telling you about. So these little bubble maps, and then the parameters are built right into it. Here's like a geospatial map within Cyberquery. And then of course scorecarding. If you want to go ahead and do your own scorecarding with Cyberquery, you can do that too. So the toolkit, this is extremely powerful because whenever we work with a market or with an application like the SX.e application market, we'll go ahead and create what's called a Cyberquery data dictionary toolkit. It's what allows you to take the raw structure of that progress database underlying SX.e and say, well, let's make it a little bit more user-friendly for the user when they start using Cyberquery. So what we initially do is we import that metadata into the Cyberquery data dictionary. And typically with the toolkit, you will have the native, which is the default database table and field names. But we also apply a user-friendly viewpoint with a table and field names. And you'll see that in a bit here when I show you the product. Table joins links. This is extremely important. We put our joins at the dictionary level, not at the report level. You can still put something, a join in when you're building a report, but if you have a relationship where 9 out of 10 times this table should be connected to this table in this way, we put it at the dictionary level so the end user doesn't have to know to do that. It's already done at the dictionary. Multi-company, especially things like Infor, LN, we can connect to those multiple companies and databases and applications as well. And then translation of data types. So if we need to translate it, when we read the database by default to have it make more sense and display correctly in Cyberquery, we can do all that as well to make sure that timestamps and dates are correctly, appropriately, what's the word I'm looking for, configured. And then also enumerated field too. So enumerated fields where it's going out and doing lookups to other types of tables. We can do that in Cyberquery. And then text fields. We can go ahead and just report off of text fields and also search through text fields. Native data access, as I've mentioned, we have progress connections. Native we have also for SQL, formats, etc. So we use these toolkits to go ahead and try to add value for different types of applications. Viewpoints. So if you have a finance viewpoint, let's say, or a payroll viewpoint, you can have all types of different viewpoints per user. So you don't have to see every single table within SX.e. They can just see a set of tables to make it a little easier for them. And then also technical expertise. So we also have a report template library. I think we have about 20 plus report templates right now. And then also the fact that you have our support team, consulting is available, and training. And we're doing it on site. Currently, we're doing it remotely. Oh, and as I mentioned, a report library and templates. So this is kind of an architecture diagram that shows how Cyberquery works. So you can use Cyberquery. There's a browser developer tool I'll show you here in a bit, but essentially Cyberquery will connect into a single server or multiple servers, and then they can connect into one database. Here it shows a company like in Infor LN, and then also worldwide views. Now, see over here are the databases coming in. So we can, once again, real time report off against different databases. And if there's common data in those databases, we can put table joins across those databases. So real time reporting across different systems. In addition, Cyberquery can write to Cyberquery data marts. ECQ stands for Enterprise Cyberquery. Sometimes you'll hear me use that terminology. But we can also read our own data marts as well too. So those are utilized at times when you're trying to do multiple pass reporting. Let's say, if you've ever put data into Excel and you're playing with it, manipulating, going through multiple passes, etc., our product allows you to programmatically do that. And then also we have a macro language in Cyberquery that allows you to say, well, run all those steps sequentially and give me my final report. So build it once, and then you can schedule it in QDirector, for example, and then it just runs daily, hourly, however often you need, and it goes through all those steps for you. So we think that's a lot smarter way than spending tons of man hours on reporting and data analysis. Test drive. So here's the nice thing about Cyberquery. We allow you to test drive for free for 30 days. So what that includes is, though there is a software license agreement for the evaluation piece, it's 30 days. You will FTP the software down. Our consultants will install it for you, and we'll do that initial data dictionary import. And we usually ask you to give us a couple reports to build. So the idea being that, we want you to see that you're getting value even before you invest in the product. And then if within 30 days you're okay with the product and you have no issues, that's when the actual subscription starts on that day 31. Otherwise, you email us telling us, hey, this isn't what we thought it was, and we're going to go ahead and cancel it. But that doesn't happen that often, so that's a good thing for all parties. And then there's 1 to 2 weeks of consulting of training. We do require 1 week of training just because we've seen, even though it's intuitive to use, it does require some training to get the value out of it. We go up here, we'll jump back to that in a second. So let me jump over here. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump in and show you the different pieces. We're getting to the product demo section now. It uses when you log in to Cyberquery, you do your operating system username and password. What you're seeing right now are different data dictionaries that I have access to. I happen to work with a lot of different markets, including some in Australia. But for this example, I'm going to go ahead and show you the Cyberquery for SX.e application down here. Now, keep in mind, as you see, there's different pieces within each section here. Each user has security to what they can get into per data dictionary. This data dictionary right here may say SX.e. This might actually be for LN above it, and the one above it might be LN/SX.e, to where we have done dictionary imports on the 2 different systems, and you're reporting across both systems in real time. So a combined dictionary. Let's show Launchpad for starters. So this is how reports and dashboards are shared with others in the organization. So you'll see different sections here. I'm going to just go ahead and click on sales for this example. And I'll show you a few different reports here. So this is actually running Cyberquery here. And let's choose this Allen report. I'm going to click run. Not the prettiest of reports, but shows some borders and shows some striping and so forth. But you can see that I went ahead and just ran out. That was a real quick one, 7 pages, pretty much instant response. That's not reading a lot of data. You see the running man here. That means you can run a query in real time. You can have the ability to clone it, which means pull a copy of it up into the developer, the report developer, and then modify it. You can edit it. I always caution against this. So this edits the actual production report that is listed here in Launchpad. Or you can say, I want to subscribe to this report and send me a copy of it. Let's do this sightline sales chart. There's another one. This one has, this has a parameter on it for starting date. Hopefully you guys have your sunglasses on. This is going with the kind of the Las Vegas theme here with the colors. But just a real quick, simple graph of showing a report. So for you guys, SX.e, I'm going to go ahead and show you this report right here. So what this does, this is going up and hitting, I believe it's a 1.4 million records. And it's running multiple queries to display a dashboard. So we have this cumulative invoice revenue by month and then a margin by month in thousands. Then we have a 13-month rolling query right under there. So we have 3 graphs, 2 on top, and then we have a year-to-date revenue report by salesperson and customer right below. So you can develop these dashboards, reports to look all different kinds of ways. This just happens to be an example here. You can see I have information tooltips on here. So when I hover over here, it shows. Let's, for this example, let me go ahead and click on here. Now, you can have on a hyperlink, you can drill into one piece of information, or it can pull up a whole hyperlink menu. This is pretty cool because it allows you to think about all the different queries you might want to run off of this graph or this content. So here I'm going to click on details for this month, goes out and it runs details for that specific month of December 2015. You can go through here and expand this to see, as you can see, what makes up these. These are collapsible and expandable type reports. Here's a hyperlink, says click for details for this customer. Goes out, runs another query for me, pulls that back, okay? Just for that specific month still. It's carrying all of those values over for the month and so forth. So on here, let's go look at margin. Let's look at details for year to date. So now it's going to go out and actually say, well, just take year to date for me. Okay. So the start date is January 2015. And because I chose November, there you go. It's showing me just that. Okay. 13-month rolling. I have details for each month. This is a lot of the same thing, just different ways to visually show it. So this is really, for the most part, covering one area of data. But then I have the shortcut right here too. If you just want to go directly to year-to-date invoice revenue, I can go and say, well, let's look at this right here for Brett Schneider. Go out, click it, and run it. So all that, once again, is real-time information as I run it, including this graph in the first place. So once again, this is Launchpad. You have the ability to show this information in all different ways, okay, and to share that information. So let me go ahead and develop a query real quick. I'll make sure we're staying on track for time here. So let me pull up Cyberquery HTML. So this is once again how you develop queries. Okay. Let's do start. So within Cyberquery, there's 3 different ways to graphically create or modify an existing query. There's the report wizard, a visual editor, and a reporting editor. And then we also have a language editor. So that as you're doing all the point, click, drag, and drops, it's building that language in the background. Okay, so it's asking me right now, I'm in the wizard, what type of report do I want to create? Well, for starters, I'm going to create a list report. So click next. Now you're seeing all the different native table names in this database. And if you're like me, you've seen a lot of ugly database table names over your time. Well, remember I mentioned that dictionary toolkit? Well, we went ahead and applied an end user viewpoint here. So now it looks all nice and clean, okay? And for this example, I'm gonna go ahead and start with my item table. So let's click item. And let's go ahead and show items, descriptions, unit measure. How about product code, PMT code? And then I also want unit cost. Okay, and then how about quantity on hand? Now I know quantity on hand isn't in that one table. So because the tables are connected at the dictionary, and I do my little filter option, I'll go look at item warehouse, and I know that's where my quantity on hand sits. So let's drag that into there. Okay. Click finish. So you should see, as I just step by step walk through that wizard, I was able to get a quick report within Cyberquery. Very basic report. We can kind of go on from here. Let's say, for example, I only want to look at those that are purchased here on the PMT code. I click on P, left click, right click, and let's say equal. Okay. Well, instantly up in my record selection area, it tells me, well, okay, I'm only looking at P here. we have a new feature we added recently. It's called a parking lot. Let's say if you've ever worked with queries, and you're like, well, I don't need it right now. I might need it later, but I don't want to put it back in the dictionary and remember where it is. You just park it. Okay. Since I parked the condition versus the field, it gets rid of the condition and just park the condition. So now I'm back to it. Okay. Let's say this unit cost, it happens to be stored in, you see all the decimal places. We do item properties, numeric, decimal places 2, and gets rid of that. Well, let's go see. I'm going to do a calculation on here. Let's multiply these. Let's control click, choose them. There we go. Extended costs. Well, same situation. And we can't set this to where it doesn't always do that by default, but it's a really easy fix just by going into here, let's do right click, edit the heading, extended cost. Click OK. All right. I think I want to let's go ahead and let's sort this. So let's sort by extended costs. So I can do right click. Let's show which items I have the highest extended costs for. Now remember, I'm showing detail here, so it's every single item that we have in our system, and it's showing it to me by cost. Okay. Okay. So let's say I want to put some things like some formatting in here. I want to go and say, let's add a border here. Go there, do some border properties, click on that. Choose a little blue color there, kind of blue-gray. Perfect example of how you can pretty up the report. Of course, you're going to like the undo. Everyone does. But let's now apply, instead of some conditional highlighting based off of value. So how about everything that's a unit cost of 1,000 or more? Let's make it 100 or more. Let's have it stick out. So right click, add value highlight. I'm going to apply it to the whole line, and let's do greater than 100. Okay. Let's just make it be. So there you go. So difference there between the other one was just I was showing stripes. Now it's showing conditional highlighting. I can also, once again, undo. Let's say I only want to show those with over 100. Left click, right click, select records where unit costs, right here. And I want to only show where it is actually greater than 100. So now it's actually going to only show those values for me. And of course, it puts that up here for me. Okay. So now, before I was only showing, and before it was taking them off the page. Now it's only showing those that are over 100. Before I was showing every single value and then only highlighting the rows that was over 100. Let's go ahead and store this, park this condition here. Let's go back. And let me go ahead and do a sum report. So I quickly showed you, and first let me show you if I put it, I'll do a sum report. So file, new. So that was just a detail report. Let's start doing some summaries. Summary, next. Let's do end user. And for this, I'm going to go and actually do a summary of sales. So let's do sales over lines. Let's summarize. I type in A, goes to amount for me. Summarize by, I want to summarize actually by my address table, name, and click finish. So a lot of people will say that our summary function is like a pivot table on steroids because it's going up against every single field that you give access to the user and every single record. Okay, you can see it's really quick. So let's say I want to bring in the date field here. I can it's simple, just drag it in. Okay. And say I want to add this to the cross area up here, just like that. If I want some totals on my cross, I left click, right click, item properties, show totals. It gives me totals there. So real quick way to summarize all the different orders by company. let's say, you see how I have a couple BPs, home hardwares, and Lowe's? You can actually join these things and create categories. So I'd say, hey, here, let's create a category, and let's just call that BP. Okay. Let's create this one, create a category, home hardware, and then Lowe's. Let's say I want to get a top 10 ranking for my report. So I can just go ahead and click on here, and then do item properties. And you can actually rank it from here too, but I'll show you here. Rank, give me the top 10, and then let's suppress the other. Quick way to get you a top 10. Throw that thing into Excel. It's that easy. What's cool about this too is when you put data into Excel, we do subtotal and total formulas for you there, okay? That's a nice time-saving feature. If I want to put this thing into a graph, I know we're running out of time here, I can click and say, convert this thing to a plot, do it in this window, all items, and it quickly puts it into a plot here. You'll see we have a ton of data here in Lowe's, so it's kind of making it all skewed here, but then you can choose from different types of plots as well. Different types of graph types right here. Okay. Let's go back to sum. Say I want to drill into this information. Click on the drill tool. How about Steve at Big Mart? Let's go drill into different data. So you can drill into, you can also drill across the information because of that data dictionary and all those relationships in the dictionary. I'm going to click sales order items to go into the specific items. And it remembered 2000 for me because I had chosen on the 2000 value, and it shows me all the items that Steve at Big Mart had ordered. So that's a pretty quick high overview. You can output to PDF and to HTML as well, email, report to. So you have a lot of different ways, as I said, to share the information within Cyberquery, but that's a very high level overview of the tool. So let's go and see if we have any questions here. So we're going directly through an API progress interface, and it's not through the application, it's directly to the database. So I'm clear. So we don't go through any type of applications to get into databases. We always go directly to the database. And what Cyberquery does is it creates an efficient SQL specific to that database to get the information back. So hopefully that answers it. SX.e, the GUI version, let me double check on that. I would be very surprised if it isn't, because it should just be going into a progress database. So I will go ahead and make sure I get back to you, Vince, on that question. Are there any other questions today? We got a few minutes. I can kind of answer a few other questions that have been asked in the past, but does it work up against the Progress, the Pro2 replicate database? It definitely does. And then also a common question we often get is, what type of Excel is needed for the Excel add-in piece? And that's 2003 or higher is needed for using the Excel add-in. Now, to export to data, we can send out to any version of Excel when we're exporting data. And another common question has to do with sized server. We typically can see Cyberquery run on a server with 4 GB RAM. Obviously, always the more the RAM, the faster it's going to go. But in regards to storage, that all depends on how often you're utilizing the data mart functionality. Those hold files within Cyberquery, the more you utilize that, because it's replicating the data. When you do that, you need more storage for that. So, any other questions? So, well, go back to the PowerPoint here. Well, thank you everyone for joining me today. If you do have any other questions, just please feel free to send them to my email. And if you want a copy of the software, we can definitely get that to you as well and have you see it running on your own data. I think that's where the real power comes in, to actually see this happening up against your system. So once again, thank you everyone for joining me today, and please do not hesitate to reach out.